What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Goldilocks podcast. I am so happy and glad to have you here, as well as my little pitbull Tyson. He's going to be here with us, just chilling. Right, Tyson? We're going to behave this time? Yeah, I think we are. Glad to have you back. Thank you for joining me on another episode. I am here in a new display. As you can see here, I have like my couch set up so I can comfortably podcast now and not be on this uncomfortable chair. So I'm very excited about that. Tyson, bad. I don't know why. Every time I start recording, he gets so thirsty for my attention. He just wants me to play with him as soon as I start talking on the podcast. And he does that too when I'm on the phone, like doing an important call. He'll start like whining and just like being really, really needy, which is kind of crazy. But here, let me adjust this mic real quick. Okay, so we have a lot to go through today. I think I want to start the podcast by talking about the Super Bowl that just happened last Sunday. I am actually here in Seattle. I have lived in Washington basically my whole entire life. So I was a diehard Seahawks fan like way back in the day, like a decade ago when I was in my early 20s. And needless to say, I still support and adore our team, the Seahawks. Go Hawks! The Seahawks won the Super Bowl 60, which was a huge deal here in Seattle and across the nation, of course. But man, that game was like, it was kind of intense. I didn't start watching the game until after they had scored the first touchdown, the Seahawks did, because I was like out taking my niece and my dog out on a walk because I really just needed to have them release that energy. And then we finally made our way back and started watching the game. And yeah, it was at first it was like the Patriots were not doing very good. And the first thing I noticed actually was just how young the Patriots quarterback was. I think his last name is May. He looks like, to me, he looked like he was 23 years old. I was like the Patriots, this is a very big, popular football team. Like, I can't believe they chose like this kid to be their starting quarterback. You know what I mean? I don't know a lot about football, so we're not going to go a lot into the specs of every single player and their history. Like, that's not me whatsoever. But I will say a few of the things I did notice was just how beaten up this kid was getting. Like, I'm not gonna lie, even though I am a relative Seahawks fan at this point in my life, I did feel bad for the Patriots quarterback. For he looked like he was getting pretty beat up. Like, about halfway through the game, he had gotten sacked so many times that like he looked visibly bruised. Like, his the Patriots were wearing all white and Seahawks were in their navy blue outfit. And that Patriot quarterback, like, he was just covered in like green everywhere, all throughout his white uniform. And to me, he looked like visibly beat up, bruised up, and like a bruised up avocado. And that kid was just taking a beating. And the Patriots were doing so bad at one point. Like, honestly, I was like, deep down, I was really rooting for the Patriots to at least have like one touchdown, because I was starting to feel so bad for them. Primarily that really young quarterback, May. I just feel bad for him. Like, he's so young. You can tell that he really wanted this. Like, he when you're young, you have so many ambitions, and to actually be at the Super Bowl, you want to do good. You want to do your best. And the kid, I just keep referring him as the kid because I'm pretty sure he's still like in his early 20s. But May, the Patriots quarterback, I don't think he was able to do his best, because the his defense wasn't really there to really protect him from all of the Seahawks players that were just like coming after him. Like at one point he got hit really hard and he just kept getting beaten up, and he was doing, you could tell he was doing his best, and he was running, trying to do like first downs by himself pretty much. There were a few fights, a few like squabbles between the players. Like there was even a punch thrown out at one point because a player pulled another player's mask or whatever, helmet. And it was like a very intense game, especially the fourth quarter. Things just like there was like what's it called, interception, there was a fumble, there was an interception. The Patriots were really close to kind of like getting more points and getting a little bit more even in points with Seahawks. And then May, and you can tell this was like his youth, like his what is the word, experience or lack of experience in big Super Bowl games. Like because of that lack of experience, you can tell he wasn't patient enough, and he just went ahead and threw the ball when he didn't necessarily have to, you know, do a desperate Hail Mary to get points. Threw the ball, and that caused interception. So one of our Seahawks team players grabbed the ball. I don't remember if they scored a touchdown from that interception, but even like the announcers that were announcing on the game, they were like, he could have just like, you know, thrown it and gone for like a first down. He didn't necessarily have to throw it all the way. And yeah, you can tell that was just his inexperience, him being young. He got a little impatient. And yeah, I felt bad for the Patriots, especially for May. And I mean, it was a fun game because so many unexpected things happened. I don't know how many years ago this was, when the Seahawks played against the Broncos at the Super Bowl. And that was just a boring game because it was obvious the Seahawks were going to win. And it was just so boring and disappointing. That year, the commercials were definitely way more entertaining than the game itself, because I was like, yeah, like obviously Seahawks are gonna beat Broncos, like whatever. So that was the game, but halftime show was a really, really, really big deal. So this year it was known that Bad Bunny was going to be the one that was going to be performing at the halftime Super Bowl. And apparently so many Americans were up in arms about Bad Bunny being like the halftime show person, because they're like, he doesn't even speak Spanish. I guess he was just like not, he was like too Latino, basically, is what they were saying. And there was even some comments out on Twitter, now X, of like this Caucasian woman. I think she looked like she was a political figure or something like that. Anyway, she could have just been a Karen, but she was like really racist about the halftime show. She was like, oh, like, what is this? This is like too pretty much like too Latino, and like immigrants ruin anything. She like, when I saw that comment, I was like, holy shit, like, oh my god. But let me backtrack. So halftime show, it was Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny did such an amazing job. Like from the very beginning, the symbolism was there, the storytelling was there. You can tell it was like he was taking us through this tour of Puerto Rico, not only a tour of the island, but a tour in time, and going from like its Puerto Rican roots all the way up to the youth taking over, like the new generation of Puerto Ricans, and the impact of reggaeton music in the islands and all across the world. It was just like super fun, amazing. I love the storytelling. There was a few appearances, not backup dancers necessarily, but they were just like there, you know. It was like Cardi B, that Pedro Pascual actor guy. Jessica Alba was there. Carol G was there. She made an appearance uh, at Bad Bunny's like they called it La Casita, and they were just like dancing, whatever, and like a few other like Latin figures that I didn't know very much. And I was surprised to see Cardi B just like there dancing, you know what I mean? But that's so funny. A lot of people were saying like, "Oh my god, like Cardi B's gonna break up with Stephon Diggs," which was, I think, a player in the Patriots, because I don't think she took not one single picture with Diggs, and people are basically saying like she's pretty much like gonna break up with him and then go on tour, because apparently Diggs was gonna have like court coming up. He has like legal problems or something like that. I don't really know too much about that, but when I saw Cardi B like grinding on this like Latin dude, I was like, wait a minute, that's not her man. That's not the dude that I've been seeing pictures of her with on social media. And then I realized, I was like, yeah, I think people are right, and I think Cardi B is gonna pretty much dump Diggs like soon, if she hadn't already. Yeah, but she was having fun. She was twerking, she was grinding on that stage, and she was dancing on that really hot sexy Latin dude. And Jessica Alba was just kind of like awkward. I don't know, just like seeing her try to dance. And I don't know. And she was the only one that her outfit was like off topic. It was like off theme. Everyone else was like on theme, like tan and whatever. And Jessica Alba, she just looked out of place, especially with her outfit and her awkward dancing. And she was like looking up at Cardi B and Carol G, trying to like trying to connect with them, but they were just kind of like doing their own thing, like dancing, like I don't know. And she was like awkwardly standing like in the corner on a different step of the casita. I don't know. It was just kind of weird to see a Jessica Alba there. She was just trying to connect and trying to have a moment, but it didn't really work, I don't think. But what else? Oh, Carol G's appearance and support for Bad Bunny by making the appearance to show up to the casita in the Super Bowl performance. I think that was her way of getting back to her ex-boyfriend Anuel AA. Because at one point, I think Anuel AA was very outspoken about just making like homophobic remarks of Bad Bunny's like fluid style, fluid fashion. You don't really know if Bad Bunny is like is straight or gay, or if he's fluid or bi. You know what I mean? Sometimes Bad Bunny dresses up in like woman costume and with like the boob implants in the hair and like looking like a baddie, you know? So I remember a few years ago, Anuel was he's also a very popular rapper. He made like homophobic comments about Bad Bunny dressing up as a woman and all that. So after Carol G's bad breakup with Anuel, because I don't think they ended on good terms, I think her making an appearance at Bad Bunny's Super Bowl stage was like her way of getting back to her ex-boyfriend Anuel and being like I support Bad Bunny, and I know just how much you disliked Bad Bunny's behavior and like his just fluid nature when it comes to like his sexuality and whatever. So I don't know. I thought that was like a really cool comeback from Karol G, like symbolism, like taking Bad Bunny's side after her breakup with Anuel. And yeah, so we went through the Puerto Rican island at the Super Bowl, which was really awesome. Lady Gaga was there, and oh my goodness, there were so many mixed reviews. So there was this beautiful wedding. An actual couple got actually married at the Super Bowl, right at during the Super Bowl performance of Bad Bunny, which was so freaking cool because like now they're going to be able to have this amazing story of getting married at Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance. Like, who the heck in the world could ever say that? Like, they're the only couple that are ever going to be able to say that, which I think it's really cool. And then after the priest or the pastor, I don't know, said, and I now pronounce you a husband and wife, and they kissed and they got married. And then they like everyone just moved to the side, and Lady Gaga shows up, and she's in a beautiful white dress, doing like a very beautiful salsa version of her song with Bruno Mars, like if the world dun, 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 with you. She was singing like a salsa version of that, and she had like the like a salsa band behind her, and it was all just really really beautiful, like, very like authentic. People were so up in arms about Lady Gaga being at Bad Bunny's performance. Everyone was saying like why didn't you have Cardi B be a performer with you, be your surprise performer? Like you actually have like a number one hit song with her. I can't remember what the name of the song is, but yeah, it's like they were like, why didn't you have Cardi B perform? Like you guys could have really done that. And why did you choose Lady Gaga to be the performer? And I don't know. A lot of people were like, why the heck is Lady Gaga there? She has nothing to do with Latin culture. She kind of like was off topic, off theme. And honestly, I don't agree with any of that. I think having Lady Gaga in his performance was like super surprising, super fun, super amazing. She killed it. She did an amazing job. Like, hello, we're talking about like multiple winning Grammy artist, Lady Gaga. Like, the whole entire world knows this lady. Everyone loves her. And honestly, the way I look at it, besides the fact that she killed her performance, she was amazing. Her voice was on point. Her outfit was on point. Her dancing was on point. She was just very poised and very like classy Lady Gaga. Yeah, so like the way I see it is that if had I been in the Super Bowl, if I was up in the stands at the Super Bowl and I had seen and I was like watching the Jumbotron, like the big screen, and all of a sudden you see Lady Gaga, I would have been like, Lady Gaga's here. I would have had this like moment, gasp moment, and I would have looked down at the actual stage and seen Lady Gaga like right there. I would have been like livid. I would have been like dancing, screaming, all of that. I would have just been like so like surprised and like happy. I was like, oh my god, like Lady Gaga's here. Lady Gaga's performing, you know? That's how I would have been had I been at the Super Bowl stands, like up in the stands. Like I would have been like like super surprised and happy and excited to see Lady Gaga because it's freaking Lady Gaga. And yeah, people were like upset, up in arms. They were like, she's not Latin, nothing to do with Latin or Puerto Rico, blah, blah, blah. But apparently Bad Bunny is like a little monster. He's like a really, really big fan of Lady Gaga. Again, like we talked about, Bad Bunny has like a reputation of being like fluid and dressing up as a woman, and you don't know if he's gay or bi or this or that or da 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 da. He loves Lady Gaga. So I heard that he had asked Lady Gaga like only a week before during the Grammys if she would be willing to perform with him at the Super Bowl. And after he made his anti-ICE speech at the Grammys, which was like super phenomenal, everyone loved him. Lady Gaga, there's a video clip of him going around social media of her like sneaking up behind him like and like whispering in his ear something, and you can see him go like like he pretended to do this like fainting motion, and people were saying like, oh, this is the moment where she said like, I agree, let's do it, like I'll be at the Super Bowl performing with you. And he just had this like fainting moment from hearing that. And but we didn't know anything about it obviously up until like the actual day where it was revealed that she was there in the Super Bowl performance. I loved it. I don't care what anybody has to say. He chose her. It's his like moment, you know. This is his big Super Bowl moment, and usually when you perform at the Super Bowl, it's kind of like one of like, it's pretty much like one of the pinnacles of somebody's career. Even if it was like Lady Gaga herself, she worked all of those years beforehand, a whole entire decade beforehand, and like this performing at the Super Bowl was kind of like a really big pinnacle of her career. So was Michael Jackson. I would say performing at the Super Bowl was a pinnacle of his career as well. And for Bad Bunny, it's a really big deal because he's the first male Latin artist to have a moment like this. Yeah, it's his moment. It was his performance. It was his vision. It was his storytelling. And he wanted her to be part of it. So if that's what he chose, that's what Bad Bunny gets, right? So yeah, I adored Lady Gaga being part of the Super Bowl halftime show with Bad Bunny. Favorite moments of his performance? It's hard to say. I would like to say like I loved all of it, the entirety of it, but I really liked when towards the ending they all came together and they held up all the flags and he like listed all of the countries that are in Latin America, in all of America pretty much, because it was his way of saying like we are all America, right? He was like, oh, God bless America, and then he listed all of the countries that are in our continent of America as like a message of saying like, oh, we are one. Like America is not just the United States, it's like all of these countries are part of the, and he did include Canada, of course. All of that being said, after seeing the entirety of Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance, which was just like chef's kiss, was amazing. I feel like Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance was exactly what our nation of the United States needed to see and hear at such a moment in time where we feel like there's a lot of corruption in our government and it almost feels like there's no hope. A moment like this, in the biggest world of the stage, the Super Bowl 60, and having this amazing performance by Bad Bunny, it's really what Americans needed. Like Americans really needed this like message of hope and of unity. We need unity now more than ever, and I feel like Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance was just such a breath of fresh air. It was a signal of hope that we are all one, we are together. And at the end of his performance, there was this huge sign. They put it up in the stadium, and it was huge. Love is more powerful than hate. I don't know the exact words exactly, but it was pretty much like love trumps hate. And that was just a really powerful message that we really needed at such a time of just like of hopelessness, depression, especially with like the Epstein Files coming out and a lot of corruption in the government, and things not really working in the favor of the American people, and instead working in the favor of the CEOs, the billionaires of corporations. Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance was really the message and the breath of fresh air that Americans truly needed at a moment like this in our American history. So I am so happy that we were all able to witness that. And go Hawks! The Seahawks won Super Bowl 60. That was super, super duper exciting. It was just all around good vibes last Sunday during the Super Bowl. Like, you can tell everyone was happy. People in the city, I live pretty much smack in the middle of the city in Seattle, and people were like setting off enormous fireworks. They sounded like boom, like it was an explosion and not an actual firework. It was crazy. And you can hear like cars like racing by. Like the city was like really lit. as soon as the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. It was just a really, really nice moment. And yesterday, the Seahawks actually had their parade, the winning parade, and I didn't go. I have to admit, I didn't go. I did go to the last parade that we had about 10 years ago. It was like a decade ago when the Seahawks won the previous Super Bowl, the last time the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. It was when like Marshawn Lynch, Sherman was playing. It was kind of like that era of the Seahawks. That's when I was really into football. Like I would watch every single game. And I don't know, when I was young, like I was just like a lot more of way more of a Seahawks fan, and I think it was because it connected me to my other young adult friends. It was something that we could bond over, right? It was just like our love for the Seahawks. So I was a really big 12 back then, but not so much now. Like now at this time in my life, I'm not willing to wake up at 7 in the morning and stand in the cold for hours waiting for any man. You know, that's just not my thing at this point in my life. I'm glad everyone else got to enjoy what I got to enjoy a decade ago when I was a really big Seahawks fan. But yeah, it was just not for me. I saw the pictures online. I saw the videos. I followed the Seahawks on Snapchat. It looked really, really fun. Like the players were getting off the buses, and they were like running across like the crowd and giving everybody high fives, and they were like dancing right in front of like the bus, and like they were really connecting with the crowd. And you can tell like almost 1 million people showed up to the parade. By the pictures, seeing the pictures and the videos, it looked super lit. But honestly, when I saw the pictures, I was like, I'm so glad I got to stay in bed and just be in the comforts of my own home. It did not make me want to like be out there whatsoever, because it was like, I'm talking, it's hard to describe, but they were like 50 lines of people wide was the crowd. Like the parade was actually pretty long. It was like half a mile worth of like going down the middle of the street pretty much, and it was just super packed. People were like up on the trees. Our city was super duper lit that morning, and like I could hear outside of my window people were being like, see hawks, and I was like, oh my god, like football season is over. And then I was like, oh, it must be like the parade. And that's when I went online and realized that it was in fact the parade, and I had just completely missed it. Didn't really have any idea about it, but I'm so happy that everyone got to have some fun. And I will say that evening when I went out to walk Tyson before we settled down for the night, I walked by a very popular bar that's nearby, and they were like, I thought it was a car at first that was bumping music, but then I realized the bar was like bumping music. They had like a tarp outside of the bar. I guess they were expecting like a lot of people, but like, and there were people, like groups of people with like Seahawks jerseys, like still in the city. Like people were partying. Like the city was lit, and that bar that I was talking about, it was like turned, like the music was all the way up turned. I didn't go. I finished walking my dog and I went home. Came back home, and I went to bed. I didn't really celebrate at all. And honestly, I don't feel like I'm missing out, because in my early 20s, like I have lived in the city for so long that it's kind of boring to go out nowadays, just because like I've done all of the Capitol Hill. Like I've seen all of Capitol Hill, and Capitol Hill, which is like the main area of Seattle where all like the bars and clubs are located, like the nightlife. Like that has changed so much in the span of like 10 years, ever since I was like in my early 20s, like going out, having fun, going out every weekend. Like I don't do that anymore. And so I didn't really have any interest in like going out to celebrate the Seahawks. I'm not a such a huge fan this year, and I just didn't really feel like getting ready, getting dolled up, and like stepping out. I don't, like I don't know. Yeah. So that is that. Go Seahawks. Congratulations on your Super Bowl 20 win. That is super awesome. So that happened on Sunday. Come Monday, it was like Epstein Files like all over again. And something that I noticed Monday morning was that like ABC News, which is owned by Disney, they were not covering or mentioning Epstein at all. And or like the Epstein files and whatnot. And it wasn't until like a few days later, like the middle of this week, that people really started to like speak up about the Epstein files. But a lot of what was going on was Amanda Guthrie's disappearance. She's an 84-year-old lady that was snatched up from her home and abducted. She was kidnapped, and for the longest we didn't have any video. She had cameras around her home, but they apparently the cameras weren't recording or something. Like they didn't have any video, they didn't have any leads as to who might have done it. And this elderly lady, she is the mom of, I think her name is Samantha Guthrie. She's one of the main gals that she used to be on Good Morning America. She's like a news anchor, and she's super super popular. Like I said, I'm pretty sure she was on Good Morning America a few years back. But one of the really big pointers about all of this was that this news anchor, Samantha Guthrie, she was one of the few people that decided to interview Epstein survivors, like the victims, and, record it and put it out there in the world. And so her mom is now missing. She was like snatched up. So it was like this really big mystery, like Monday, Tuesday, like they're just like, they were very slowly getting like very minuscule, what would you call them, leads, not leads, like they would find a little bit of blood right here, or they would find now have found a glove. So they didn't have information about this woman's disappearance for the longest time. Mind you, she's an elderly woman, like she needs medication, she has a heart pacer. When I heard heart pacer, I was like, oh my god, like that stuff is like super sensitive. I worked at a hospital for like 5 years, so I know all the lingo, and I know like a heart pacer, it's like a really big deal. It's very delicate. And so like that made me really worried for that woman, and they just kept like covering her kidnapping story like every single day. And you could say, oh, it's because she's like affiliated with like a very public figure like Samantha Guthrie. She's a popular news anchor. But that's why they're covering her so much, right? Because if this would be like any like random person from Texas or somebody from Nebraska, like the news would have moved on so quickly onto the next story. You know what I mean? But they're till this day they're still covering Amanda Guthrie's disappearance. This is where I am trying to make a point. Yesterday, we finally got video of the person that broke into Amanda Guthrie's home in the middle of the night, and it was a masked man wearing a backpack, just all covered up, and he seemed to be like very well organized. Like everything was covered up, like he knew what he was doing, I feel like. And it was interesting because like before, apparently like cameras weren't recording. We don't have any camera evidence of like what the person, the kidnapper looks like, and now we do. So like we now magically have the video surveillance has emerged out of nowhere, which is very very weird. And apparently it was a Nest camera, which I heard was connected to Google. It was not Ring, it was a Google Nest camera. And I heard something about like the servers, something happened with the servers. which is the reason that they weren't able to get like the video surveillance. But like the FBI is connected to this investigation. It has become this really huge investigation. And yeah, it's just so weird that the FBI couldn't get a hold of the surveillance video, and out of nowhere it all of a sudden emerges. It really doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So that's weird point number one. Weird point number two was that, like, at first, like, somebody reached out to the news, not to the family. They reached out to the news that, like, they sent out a letter talking about, like, they wanted money in Bitcoin. I think it was like $4 million. And then, like, they didn't really connect with the Guthrie siblings. And then a second letter was sent out with another deadline. I don't know if it had to do with money again, but like, Samantha Guthrie and her siblings has not been able to get in contact with, like, the kidnapper or kidnappers. The kidnapper hasn't made an attempt to, like, really have any communication, back and forth communication. And even the news people were admitting, like, yeah, like, this is really weird. They even brought, like, this ex FBI guy to like put in his, like, 2 cents about this. And even the FBI guy on the news was like, yeah, this is just really weird, because usually if a person is kidnapped, then they ask for, like, they send out a ransom note, they ask for this amount of money, and there's, like, communication. But in this particular case with this kidnapping, there is no back and forth communication. So the reason I am saying all of this is because I think the reason the Guthrie siblings haven't gotten a hold of the kidnapper of their mother, it's because there is no kidnapper. I don't think, like, a certain individual has kidnapped Amanda Guthrie to get money out of this. What I suspect is that people that are related to the Epstein Files have come together and decided to kidnap this elderly woman, Amanda Guthrie, as a way to send out a message to anybody that wants to, or is even thinking about interviewing or speaking to the victims, and allowing the victims to speak against these very powerful men. And I think these very powerful men are using Amanda Guthrie's kidnapping as a way of saying, watch out, this is a warning to anybody who is thinking about or planning on talking to the victims, and wanting to have these powerful men named out into the public. So I think this whole kidnapping is one big, like, scheme to kind of, like, scare off people from really touching or opening up the Epstein Files. I think they're making Amanda Guthrie's kidnapping a warning to everybody. And I think that's the reason why the Guthrie siblings haven't been able to get a hold of the kidnapper, and this whole thing is just kind of off. It's because I think these powerful men that are related in the Epstein Files are behind this whole kidnapping. And that's just my perspective. I feel like I'm just kind of connecting dots together. That's just because the whole thing is just very suspicious. It doesn't make sense. They haven't asked for money yet. I don't think it's even about the money. They're just pretending that this kidnapper is, like, looking for Bitcoin money ransom and this and that, but there is no kidnapper. These powerful men have Samantha Guthrie's mother, and they're making an example out of her because Samantha Guthrie did, in fact, was one of the only popular news anchors that interviewed the Epstein victims. So we will see what happens. And the fact that, like, the surveillance video of the kidnapper magically has appeared now out of nowhere, that's suspicious, right? Like, Google, who knows if the Google CEO is in the Epstein Files and is helping these powerful men do, like, a cover up. At first, they didn't release the video footage of the person that kidnapped Amanda Guthrie. And eventually, a few days later, the surveillance camera footage magically shows up out of nowhere. Like, what are the odds of that? You know what I mean? Like, what are the odds? Like, the Nest camera was recording this whole entire time. Google had the freaking footage, but didn't release it. And you're telling me all these other neighbors' cameras, security cameras, didn't record anything either? Like, the whole thing is just super sus. I think it's just one big cover up, covering up the fact that these powerful men have Samantha Guthrie's mother. And at this point, unfortunately, like, who knows if she's even alive? My theory is that these rich, powerful men might still have her alive because Amanda Guthrie requires a very important daily medication to keep her alive. These men, if my theory is right, and these men actually have Amanda Guthrie, they have enough money to easily, quickly get a hold of that medication and keep this woman alive for as long as they want or need or whatever. I don't know what's gonna happen to her. I really, to God, hope that this elderly lady is returned back home. But at this point, like this long, I don't know what the odds of that are. And that's just a really, really scary place to be. Like, I cannot even imagine how terrifying it must have been for her to just see a shadowy figure in the night and realize it's not a product of her imagination, and it is in fact a man invading her personal space, her home, and coming and taking her. There was like a little bit of blood splattered at the front of her door. Like, God forbid, like only God knows what state, mental and physical state, this woman is in right now. And it's just a really, just such an unfortunate and tragic place to be for this woman and for her children. Like, her children are suffering. They're putting out videos out there in the media, like supplicating, like you can tell they're emotional. Yeah, so my heart goes out to them, and may Amanda Guthrie be returned back home safe and sound. All right, so last but not least, we are going to be talking about the Epstein Files. So this is an American history making moment. This time in our lives that we're living in right now is going to make it into the history books, no matter what billionaire or high figure is out there in the world that does not want this to come out to light. This moment of the Epstein Files being released somewhat to the public and to Congress as well is going to be marked in the history books of the United States of America, because this has turned out to be one of the greatest scandals, American scandals in United States history. Like the Clinton Watergate era, anything Nixon did in government, no other scandal comes close to the atrocity that this revelation is. And it will forever be remembered as a huge taint and rot in our American history, because there are so many layers to this revelation that you really need to like take a seat and really like unravel it one layer at a time. But let's start with Monday morning. Or no, let's start before that. I know in my last podcast, a few of the Epstein files, a small percentage was released to the public, and they were unredacted, and they listed all of the atrocities. Names were still being, blocked, but they listed a lot of the atrocities that were made to women, and some speculate to children, and other people know for sure, for a fact, that they are in fact talking about children. And I don't really want to get into like my personal opinion about that. I already told you guys in my last podcast like exactly how I felt about violence being inflicted upon children. I don't want to get too much into that because it does frustrate me and cause me a lot of stress and distress. But people were saying children were involved in the atrocities of the Epstein Files, not just women or, young women. So people started reading into them, and everybody on Threads, the app, was speaking up about it. And they were just like, we don't understand how these people are not jailed. Like, how are arrests not being made, and this and that. And everyone was just like, people are still extremely angry and upset, as they should be. But over the weekend, people got a chance to look at some of the files that were released, and it was just a lot. So come Monday, I noticed a lot of the news, especially like the widespread media like ABC, NBC News, nobody was really talking about the details that were in the Epstein files. So to me, that was like red flag number one, because I know most of our media is owned by billionaires, which I'm sure in some form they are involved in the Epstein files, probably. I don't think we have any of the predators that were involved. We don't know their names yet, but I do know about 6 names were released by one of the congressmen. We will get to that. So yesterday, Pam Bondi, she is the Attorney General for the United States of America of the Department of Justice. So this woman is pretty much appointed. She is supposed to be America's lawyer. She is supposed to be America's attorney. She is supposed to make sure that the Department of Justice, that we as Americans as a whole are being protected, that our constitutional rights are being protected under the Department of Justice. So she is like America's lawyer, Pam Bondi. Beforehand, she had made a statement to Congress saying that if we release all of the Epstein files, the whole system will collapse. And she made that actual statement, and like, that is a really big statement to be making out to the public. And like, that comes to show just how deep this ring of pedophiles and criminals, just how deep they're intertwined into like every aspect of our lives, whether that's like politics or entertainment. Because Hollywood, we've all known there's been huge conspiracy theories of there being lots of bloodshed in Hollywood in order for these super popular artists to make it to that top level of popularity or fame. There's always been conspiracy theories that sacrifices have been made in Hollywood, in the Hollywood Hills, that blood has been shed in Los Angeles and Hollywood in order for these people to really rise to this like insurmountable amount of fame or power. We've all known the conspiracy theories related to that. But that being said, Pam Bondi, she stated like, if we release all the files, the whole system collapse. And like, if that is the case, the system absolutely needs to collapse. We need to let it just dismantle and just disappear, because who gives a fuck about the system collapsing if it means us as Americans and the victims getting justice and finally like getting some form of relief from all the atrocities and the treatment that we as Americans have suffered through from these corporations, including our jobs, including like all of the services and the food industry, and like all these high costs and high prices, all of the debt that these people, that the system like unloads on us. The system has pretty much made Americans into like slaves, unfortunately, especially when it comes to debt and the highest prices for healthcare, highest prices for cars, and rising costs of groceries. Like at every point, these corporations are fucking us. There's no other way to describe it. They're really just screwing us over. Like, in the name of capitalism, this time in our lives in American history is going to be remembered as corporationism, which is when every aspect of American life, American politics catered to corporate greed, to corporate benefits, and even giving corporate welfare. Like a lot of our taxpayer money has been handed down to corporations, and that is just backwards. It's ass backwards. So the whole system, it's been clear for a very, very, very long time. The whole system is not working for Americans, but rather it's working for these extremely powerful and rich billionaires. And some people like to call them the elites, but I'm not gonna call them that because they're just it sounds, from the sound of it, they are very atrocious and soulless people. So for a very long time, the whole system has worked for corporations and it has not been working for Americans. If Pam Bondi says if the Epstein Files are released, the whole system will fail, well, let it fucking fail. Let them have like even a fraction of what they deserve, and let every single system collapse and be dismantled and disappear forever, and let things change in the favor of Americans, of hardworking people, of people with families, people with jobs, people with careers, people that have aspirations, people that have dreams. And you know, that has all been put to the side in the name of capitalism, in the name of all of these billionaires, trillionaires, all of these people, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, they're all in the files. They're all the ones that make the most money from us. They're the type of people that really set us up in systems that somewhat enslave us. Is this really the land of the free, or is this the land of debt? I don't know, you tell me. So fuck Pam Bondi, first of all. I hope that woman burns in hell. And may my God excuse me, but there is a special place for Pam Bondi and for Ghislaine Maxwell, who, by the way, is asking to be like shown mercy by the president. And apparently she made out a statement. She pleaded the fifth, which is, I believe, her right to remain silent in front of Congress when she was supposed to testify. And her lawyer stated for her that if Trump gives her clemency, that was the word, if Trump gives her clemency, which pretty much it means like if they show mercy in her case, that she is pretty much willing to absolve all of Trump's fault and pretty much lie for Trump and say he was not involved in any way, and kind of just like remove his like relation to the criminals. So fuck Ghislaine Maxwell. There's a special place in hell. She's gonna burn in hell and be tortured in the everlasting river of fire. The devil will make her tap dance forever and ever and ever and ever. Okay. So that being said, Pam Bondi, the woman we're talking about, she was pretty much grilled by a bunch of Democrats and other members of Congress in a hearing yesterday, and that woman was just disrespectful. She was entitled. She was pretty much being grilled by all of these politicians, for they were all accusing her of doing this massive cover up of the Epstein Files. And they even stated like, hey, you cannot even look at these victims in the eyes. And Pam Bondi did refuse. She was given a chance to, but refused to turn around and look at the victims or even acknowledge them. Fuck that bitch. And so like during the hearing, she was just deflecting, not answering any questions, gaslighting. So to me, like her body language, I'm really good at reading body language, because at this point in my life, I have had more than like 20 jobs. I have had tens of thousands of face-to-face interactions with people when it comes to like retail or in the hospital or in a restaurant. I have had, if there's one thing I know people. And my body language reading is super good. And the body language that I was reading from Pam Bondi was that she was guilty as charged. That woman is guilty. She's scared. She was super fidgety, not making eye contact. She was even like inappropriately laughing at some point when she was being accused of her crimes. And like, to me, that showed her nervousness. Like, her body language was just showing really bad signs that yes, she is in fact, she knows she's going down. That woman is going down. She's going to jail. That woman is going to jail. She's in a lot of trouble and she knows it. But at this point, she's in such a high position of power that she's almost like delusionally acting like there's not going to be any consequences. She's acting as if there's not going to be a post-Trump administration world, America, and there will be. The timing of that, who knows what that is going to be, because that is yet to be determined. But yeah, like she was acting that there was going to be, like, there was not going to be any consequences for her. It was just really, really, really bad. And some of the Congress people, they were asking her like, are you or will you not release the unredacted files to the public? And of course she deflected, but I was like, yeah, like, ask her, like, are the files, which by law the Department of Justice was supposed to release by law, unredacted to the public by a certain deadline, like, they already broke that law. And from all the questioning, they some of the Congress people actually got her. They got her lying under oath, and one of them even told you, they're like, that's all I need from you, you just lied under oath. Like, they got this bitch, like, they got her. And the reason why people are like, after a fraction of the Epstein files were released, the public was like, why aren't there arrests being made? Like, why isn't she behind bars at this point? And the reason for that is because this works in a certain way. Like, they had to question her and they had to like catch her lying under oath. And from this hearing where she just broke the law and this and that, lied under oath, from this hearing they're going to be able to move forward with pretty much like setting up a case to jail her, basically. But like, they needed to follow certain legal steps to like really get her and really set up a good case to throw the bitch in jail, basically. That's why she's not behind bars yet, and she is still kind of in a really high position of power, so she is somewhat still protected. But yeah, I hate to say this, but I think we might have to wait until the midterms, where there is a very big chance that the Democrats are going to be able to regain power from the Republicans, from the GOP, and will be able to set a court date for Pam Bondi for lying under oath and do all of that stuff. Because right now, as long as the Trump administration is in power, a lot of things are going to be placed on hold, because we need to wait for that shift in power, that shift in Democrats gaining back power, in order for Democrats to be able to do all of this stuff that they want to do and execute. So, I mean, will there be change like before the midterms happen at the end of this year? I don't know. No one knows what's gonna happen. But the truth of the matter is that I have in fact failed at limiting my doom scrolling, and I am still doom scrolling. I'm spending a little too much time online, especially on Threads, which I believe has gotten just a little bit toxic with the amount of like backlash and anger that has overtaken the app. And I think the reason for that is because people see Threads now as like a really good gateway to communicate like their liberal ideas and really be able to speak out like maybe what they wanted to say would have been flagged on Twitter, which is now X and is owned by Elon Musk, which by the way is also mentioned in the Epstein Files. Apparently he didn't really actually go to the island, but he is mentioned, and he did in fact ask to go to the island to the wildest party is what he said on the email. He's like, when are you going to have the wildest party? Like I'm like I'm ready for that. Anyways, but he was so much of a loser, so much of a dweeb that like those rich people didn't want Elon Musk to come hang out with them. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the only reason that the only thing that saved Elon Musk from being fully complicit. But anyways, so people are moving away from Twitter and using Threads as their actual outlet to be able to be fully outspoken about their ideas, especially related to the Epstein Files. Apparently, some of the ICE overtaking Minnesota stuff is being like policed on Threads. Mark Zuckerberg owns Threads and Instagram and Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg was also in the mentioned in the Epstein Files. So it's just really, really crazy. And where was I going with this? Yeah, I unfortunately have been doom scrolling away, and I think the reason for it is because I'm trying to keep myself informed, but at the same time there is so much information being released that it's too much. It's a lot of information, especially a lot of political information that I'm trying to like keep up with, because things are happening and unraveling so fast when it comes to the Epstein case. Like members of Congress they were told that they were going to be able to see all of the unredacted Epstein files, but they were like, there's still a huge fraction of the files that are still redacted and they should not have been. And they're fighting, like they're really, really fighting. Apparently, like Trump was mentioned like 1 million times when they searched up his name, like on the search bar, his name was mentioned like 1 million times on the files, but there's still like 3 million files that still remain redacted, and that's probably where Trump's name is sprinkled all throughout. But like a lot of things, there's so much political information happening, and not just about the Epstein Files, but also about tariffs and like moves and counter moves. And I'm usually not somebody that gets too political, but I think this is such a pivoting moment in our American history that it is so important to stay up to date, to know at least a little bit of what's going on and not live in like la la land, because some serious information is coming out. And as much as I don't want to let it consume me, and I have stayed away from reading the actual files, I think it's still important to know in at least a little bit, right? To know what is going on. Has the full truth been revealed yet or not? And I think, if some people want to live in la la land and not keep up with this stuff, that's their prerogative. Some people, from my experience in life, I know some people are not mentally tough enough to deal with such atrocities and deal with something so dark and so heavy as the Epstein Files. And I would encourage people to not really push and demand that people be like fully informed on the Epstein Files, because from my experience in life, especially working in a hospital, where there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering at hospitals, I know for a fact there's a lot of people that don't have that mental strength to really cope and deal with really, really sad things. And just don't force those people, like don't make them feel bad for not wanting to get like too involved in such a dark time in our American history, or present, I should say. But yeah, a lot's going on with the Epstein Files. We have yet to have the full truth be revealed to us, but the truth will be revealed. It will come out. But it sounds like there is some truly dark demonic, truly satanic things that happened in the Epstein circle that people are talking about. Like all of the Congress people that were able to see some part of the unredacted files, which by the way, they had to go to the Department of Justice to be able to like see the files. That's just crazy. But anyways, all of them that come out after like a whole day of going through some of the files, all of them seem deeply disturbed. They seem deeply traumatized. You can tell like their stomach is churning. I cannot even imagine what is in those files, like the full truth. Apparently there was like a torture video mentioned. I heard that there was like a girl being tortured by Epstein. Like Epstein was like, she was like tied up in the grass and Epstein was burning her with like a magnifying glass or something, and like apparently the girl was like screaming, and like I don't want to think too much about that because it makes my stomach like really upset. Like it makes me want to vomit. But apparently there was a lot of mention of babies. People were saying they're eating babies. People were saying they were eating children. And not only that, but allegedly, from what other people have been saying, they had like rituals that they performed where it's pretty much like a child sacrifice that they give off to a demon or the devil in order for the devil to give them more power, for the devil to allow them to get to that next level of power. And apparently there was like different layers of Epstein parties that had like different layers of fucked up. And if like a Epstein guest was able to get through a like a pretty messed up party and still be able to like cope with it, then they were allowed to the next level of fucked up party or get together that they had. So they didn't just automatically expose all of the Epstein guests immediately to the most like atrocious parts of their doings, but there was like layers to this. And they even, I heard from like a video on YouTube popped up of Andrew Huberman. He's a very, very smart professor, saying that in the science community, it is known that a lot of these scientists were invited to the Epstein Files because the billionaires really loved and enjoyed being around this truly bright people, really smart, important people, and that it was just like a whole like scheme. That the scientists only like went there to really just like get funding for their programs, for their research, whatever. But it was all part of like wanting the billionaires to come back because they also enjoyed being around really like important figures, really smart scientific people, the brightest people like in the world, whatever. And that made billionaires feel important, just being around the super like bright people. That's just stuff that I've been like hearing from the internet. I don't know if it's true. Yeah, just child sacrifice, people eating kids, people eating babies, like the pedophilia, really, really, really young girls being used and like trafficked between states or between countries by Epstein himself. He would allegedly bring Trump like a really young girl. Just really bad things that I've been hearing from those files. And like I honestly, I almost don't even want to hear the rest of what's in the files, just because I feel like what's already been released has been like all too much. But apparently it just gets worse, and I don't want to be involved with like any of that like satanic ritualistic stuff. Some people on Threads were even like saying like, because people on Threads, they just communicate a lot. You know, there's a lot of communication going on. People on Threads were saying like, hey, if you're reading the Epstein Files, like you need to do this to cleanse yourself. You need to like cleanse yourself, cleanse your home after reading the files, so that you can shed off all of that negative energy that you're like reading and pretty much intaking, that you're absorbing from reading that dark stuff. And like Some people like were allegedly saying on threads, they even type like, oh my god, like I feel like a dark presence here with me right now after reading the files. I am superstitious and I'm also religious, so if people were saying that on threads, then that tells me that I should continue to avoid reading the files, because who knows, maybe those files are cursed and it wouldn't, that's like me creating a conspiracy theory, and I'm really into conspiracy theories, but this is like really serious stuff, you know what I mean? But it could be negative energy can transfer through social media and videos, and there was a whole series like the VHS series that was super popular with like people that are into scary movies, the VHS series of like people watching these cursed tapes and then like bad things happening to them. So it's like a thing out in like pop culture, in the media and whatnot. But one last thing that I want to say about like the Epstein files is that like people in Hollywood, in film, try to tell us, they try to show us these billionaires world and like how they like think and like what it is that they truly want. Movies like 50 Shades of Grey, it features Mr. Grey, who is like a very young millionaire. He has gained so much success, and it turns out that his little secret is that he is a sadist. Like he gets pleasure from like seeing women being tortured and like showing pain. Like he gets off on their pain. That's a sadist, you know. 50 Shades of Grey is only one example of like film trying to show us how these like billionaires think. Like they don't get pleasure just from like going to Vegas and like blowing their money on drugs and hookers and cocaine. Like these people, like the way their minds function is like, if somebody can have anything in the world that they want what they cannot have. In this instance, it would be like really young girls, or like things that are off limits, and like they don't get off on like just eating delicious food. They get pleasure from torturing people. And this is a known fact in Dubai, that there's parties where some billionaires like cage up girls and torture girls, and they have like these big parties where they invite like influencers and like the most beautiful woman, and they just do like atrocities to these women, and that's what billionaires like. So 50 Shades of Grey is just like one example of how these billionaires' minds like function, you know. It's like they are not like the rest of us. Like their mind, they just want different things, they get off on different things. So that's just one example. But yeah, like Mr. Grey, like torturing countless of like super submissive girls, and the fact that he's not just a regular guy, he's a billionaire, right? So he has like all of these resources and this and that. And the movie ends up in a nice way. Like he ends up like having a soul and choosing love over choosing lust and whatever. So that's just one example. But another example that I thought about, that I was thinking about, was the Paranormal Activity movies. That's another example of like the film world trying to like show us a little peek into these billionaires' world, which is like a coven of witches, like not only kidnapping and bringing together like children in order to like sacrifice them for fame, for power, for money. Not only kidnapping kids, but also like farming kids. Like they took pregnant women and did their sacrificial sacrifices, or like, I don't know what's the word, but they did like the triangle thing on like the pregnant woman and offered the baby to like to the demon in order to get like money or fame or this and that. One of my favorite Paranormal Activity movies, it was what's it called? It was the one with all the Hispanic kids. Anyways, I think it was like the fourth one, where like it's like that really young high school kid, Latino kid, he like finds out he's part of like, he has been chosen beforehand by like a group of witches to like be sacrificed to a demon, and they had to wait until he's 18, and eventually like they do get him. In Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, I think his name was like Jesse. That movie like really dives deep into like the witches coven and what they do with the kids and this and that. I think Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, is a really good example of the film industry trying to like give us a peek of what really happens to these children and how people are able to acquire this huge amount of power, huge amount of wealth and fame. So it's out there. Like, Hollywood has been trying to tell us, they have been trying to show us. The examples I gave you, those are just a few examples of like previews of what really happens behind closed doors. And anyways, yeah, I guess we just really have to see what comes next. And I really need to just like protect myself somehow and not allow all of this to consume me, because I want to continue to be informed. Maybe I think I'm going to spend a little less time on Threads, because Threads, it's what really gets me, because it's all of these people's opinions and this huge amount of information, not just from the public, but also from like political figures that are involved in uncovering like the Epstein Files. So, and every single day it's like a new release, like something new. So I really need to just be more careful with that and just like protect my mind, protect my spirit. And I know I said that last time in my last episode, but like I think this time I really need to just like get serious about it and just be more mindful of what I consume, of what I watch, and the amount of time that I spent like investigating all of these things. I'm just a very curious person. That's just me. It's who I am. But yeah, for my mental health's sake, I think I just need to like take it a step down and really just like let off the gas, right? Be informed. I'm still going to watch the news like in the morning with my coffee, but maybe I won't dive so deep into all of that. But I'm sorry if this got a little more political than you would like. I usually don't like to get this political, but the fact of the matter is that this is just what's going on in our country right now, right? And it's a really big deal. So I'm glad we were able to talk about it. Thank you, especially if you stuck to the end. And I just want to finish this podcast on a good note, but I don't really know what else to talk about. I do want to talk about Gen Z fashion, but I think Gen Z boring fashion, I have a lot of thoughts about that. But I think I'm just going to leave that for next time. And hopefully next episode is a little bit lighter and not so heavy, not so dark. I'm going to try to keep it that way. Hopefully I can. Again, thank you so much for watching, staying until the end. Make sure to follow at the Goldilux podcast. Goldilux is spelled Goldi. Lux, Luxe, at the Goldilux podcast. I am on Instagram. I am on Threads. I am on YouTube. I am on Upstart. So yeah, if you want to follow that, feel free to. And yeah, until next time, bye.